Yes, I just can't get enough of adding more details to my N-scale Harbour scene. This scene is coming to life well, but there's always something more to add, so let's get started. First off, I need to add a few winches onto the car float apron to winch the car float tight to the apron. These were 3D printed and taken off the supports. I used some old foam brush handles with double-sided tape stuck to the ends as makeshift painting handles. These work well and reuse what is usually garbage. I primed the winches and painted them yellow with a brush. I went for a more mottled finish with the yellow not fully covering the black primer. I then added thread, again borrowed from my wife's sewing box, wrapping it around the winch drum. I also painted some silver onto some of the bolts and other metal parts with my usual detail tool, a pointy toothpick. The winches were glued in place where they wouldn't interfere with the cars. I then tied the thread around the bollards on the car float and used CA glue to secure them. I then cut off the excess thread. Unfortunately, I didn't get the thread tight enough, so decided to simply move the bollards a bit back. Now on to some marine life. Seagulls! You've maybe already seen some sitting seagulls that I added a few videos back, but I also wanted some flying seagulls. This ended up being difficult as resin printed wings were too brittle. So instead I resin printed out the bodies of the seagulls and then printed out the wings on my laser 2D printer. These were carefully cut out and then glued to the body. I also tried to drill a small hole on the underside of the body, but this was tricky and I just ended up cracking the resin. I used CA glue to glue on a short length of clear fishing line. This also gave me a convenient handle that I could stick onto a clothespin to then paint the wings gray and the body white. I did print the bodies in white resin, but I find the resin can be a bit translucent when the parts are very small. And the beak got a touch of yellow with my trusty toothpick. I found that gluing the bodies to the paper before cutting the wings out was easier, so I made some more. And I have more printed wings and bodies so I can make more in the future. The end of the fishing line was glued into a gap in the pilings. It was a bit fiddly, as you can see. And here's a close-up. You can still see the fishing line, but from further away it's generally invisible. For the seagulls that are hovering over the water, I drilled an appropriate sized hole with my pin vise through the acrylic gel medium and into the underlying plywood. And then the fishing line was glued into the hole. So we have a few in a few different places. Next up, an abandoned boom boat. I found a really neat 3D model, scaled it to N scale and printed it. After priming it, I started to paint it as it came out of the factory. These types of small powerful boats are used to push logs into log booms. They're quite popular here on the west coast because of the forest industry in BC. This one, however, unfortunately met a sad end. Old Relic, who lived all his life working on various boats, used this boom boat as his main tool to manage log booms all over the coast. He would collect up stray logs and sell them back to be added to log booms on their way to the sawmills. Over time, the boom boat suffered from the elements, as Relic didn't have the time or money to keep up maintenance on it. so hence why I rusted this one up with some brick red paint. I also added some leftover tires for my tugboat project, tying on some more of that thread. I also added a coil of rope to the back as I saw in one reference photo. Finally, I hit it with some pan pastels. I might have overdone it, but once you hear what happened to the boat, it makes sense. On one fateful day in summer a few years ago, Relic managed to beach the boom boat just before dying of a heart attack. However, his boat has been subject to a lot of local discussion because no one wants to take responsibility for removing it, and since it doesn't pose a serious hazard to other boats, it has been left there to rot away until maybe a big wave one day will wash it out to sea. Now on to a more happy scene, a cabin cruiser. Again, I found a great 3D model that I printed. I primed and painted it all white, and then painted the interior in a light brown to simulate wood cabinets and paneling. This steering wheel also came with a 3D model. You can see how tiny this is at the end of the toothpick. This was glued in place in the cockpit. For the deck, I wanted to have a wood plank deck, so I used the top view of the 3D model and a wood deck image to print out the deck, and then I carefully cut it out. It took a few tries to get the scaling right. But in the end it did fit in well, so well that I didn't have to glue it. I also printed out a watermelon beach towel. Again, this was incredibly tiny. I glued the towel in place and then added a 3D model. Luckily, I had bought some detail paint brushes, so that was actually doable. So here we are, Winches, Seagulls, the cabin cruiser with a young woman and man. I will be adding someone in the seat in the cockpit at a later date. And then the ill-fated boomboat. Hope you enjoyed the video. There is one more in this Harbour series, so stay tuned. And thanks for watching.